You're hungry. Not the kind of hungry where you check the fridge and decide it's too early. The kind where your vision narrows, your hams shake, and the only thing your body is doing, the only job it has, is finding food. It's somewhere in northern Europe, roughly 12,000 years ago. You haven't eaten in 2 days. There is no schedule. There is no kitchen. There is no guarantee there will be anything tomorrow. So, how did ancient humans survive and thrive, eating in a pattern that would horrify every modern nutritionist alive? Right now, somewhere near you, a meal prep container is sitting in a refrigerator timed to the exact hour. Breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. 3 meals. Scheduled, reliable. You've eaten this way your entire life, and so has every adult you've ever known. What you probably haven't been told is that this pattern is, in the full span of human history, extraordinarily new, and that the body you're walking around in was built for something completely different. Everyone assumes 3 meals a day is a biological default, something ancient, hardwired. The truth is, it's an industrial invention. And here's the evidence. In 1994, historian Abigail Carroll, drawing on archival research later published in her book Three Squares, The Invention of the American Meal, documented that structured three-meal eating only became the dominant pattern in Western culture during the 18th and 19th centuries. Before industrialization standardized working hours, and therefore eating hours, most people in medieval and early modern Europe ate 2 meals a day or simply ate when work and daylight permitted. The word breakfast itself only became common in the 15th century. Before that, there was no culturally recognized event of breaking a fast, because no one had a formalized fast to break. The 3 meal framework wasn't discovered. It was scheduled, organized around factory shifts, school bells, and railway timetables, not around anything the human stomach was asking for. That alone should stop you. A pattern this universal, this automatic, and it's only a few hundred years old. Here's where it gets strange. In 2012, neuroscientist Mark Mattson at the National Institute on Aging in Baltimore published a landmark review of intermittent fasting research in Nature Reviews Neuroscience. His team found that the brain under mild food scarcity doesn't degrade, it sharpens. Specifically, caloric restriction of 30 to 40 triggered measurable increases in brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that strengthens neural connections and protects against cognitive decline. The hunter-gatherer brain, forced to function while hungry, wasn't fighting against deprivation, it was running on it. The state of light hunger may have been the brain's preferred operating mode for the majority of human evolutionary history. Not a problem to be solved, but a signal that sharper thinking was now required. The modern assumption is that hunger impairs you. The ancient reality is that it may have been the switch that turned you on. So, what does the archaeological record actually show about eating frequency? In 2017, researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig analyzed stable isotope ratios from 650 skeletal specimens, spanning 40,000 years of European prehistory. The isotope signatures, preserved in bone collagen, revealed wide variation in dietary patterns across seasons and geography, but one consistent signal: extended gaps between high-calorie intake events. In practical terms, these were people who feasted opportunistically when large game was killed, then went 24 to 72 hours between significant meals during lean periods. There was no evidence of the steady, evenly spaced caloric intake that 3 meals a day produces. What there was evidence of was metabolic flexibility, the body's ability to shift from burning glucose to burning stored fat with minimal distress. That flexibility, the isotope data suggests, wasn't a survival emergency response. It was the default state. The modern body still carries that machinery. It's just that most people never turn it on. But there's a problem with the simple story here, the one that says ancient humans were essentially accidental intermittent fasters who thrived on skipped meals. Everyone assumes the benefit was purely physical. The truth is, the social architecture around eating was more important than the eating itself. And that distinction changes everything about how we should think about this. In 2010, anthropologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard published Catching Fire: How Cooking Made Us Human, drawing on decades of primatological and fossil evidence. Wrangham's core argument, supported by cranial and dental fossil records going back roughly 8 million years to early Homo erectus, is that communal cooking around fire was the catalytic event in human cognitive evolution. Skulls shrank, intestines shortened, and brains expanded in direct proportion to the introduction of cooked, easily digestible food. But the timing was never structured. Hominid groups cooked and ate when the hunt succeeded, when foraging yielded surplus, when fire was available and safe. The meal wasn't a clock event, it was a social event. And the gap between meals wasn't deprivation. It was the normal rhythm of a life lived outdoors, in motion, with no refrigerator and no concept of mealtime. What ancient humans had wasn't a diet plan. It was the absence of the infrastructure that made schedules necessary in the first place. So what actually changed? The clearest turning point isn't prehistoric. It's 1890, when the American industrial workday was codified. 10-hour shifts, standardized lunch breaks, morning start times, eating reorganized around it. Employers needed workers alert at specific hours. Schools needed children fed before their arrival. Advertisers selling breakfast cereals in the early 20th century needed a cultural norm that made morning eating feel mandatory. In 1944, the Great Nuts Cereal Company ran a radio campaign explicitly promoting breakfast as the essential third meal, a campaign documented in food historian Harvey Levinstein's Revolution at the Table, published by Oxford University Press in 1988. Within a generation, the idea that skipping breakfast was medically dangerous had moved from marketing copy into public health messaging. The body didn't change. The calendar around it did. You're back in that field. 2 days without food. Vision narrowed. Ham steadied by purpose rather than panic. Moving towards something your senses are tracking before your conscious mind catches up. That person didn't need a meal schedule. They needed the skill set that mild, recurring hunger trained into them. Focus. Patience, the ability to stay functional when the body is asking for more than it's getting. What we traded when we built the 3 meal day wasn't just a different eating pattern. We traded the cognitive and metabolic state that the body produces when food isn't guaranteed, and replaced it with the assumption that it should always be. We solved hunger so completely that most of us have forgotten what it was like.